Kank, kank. Kank, kank, kank. I love it. That's my favorite part, is the kank, kank part. What's going on, Mike? How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, man. You sound really crisp, too.
Hmm.
That's a good thing. Welcome, everybody, back to the podcast. You know what this is, your favorite pandemic podcast, Pencil to Pencil. Brought to you by, where are my Johns at? Brought to you by, you see the John up there, our good friends at Graphicsly that make Clip Studio Paint. Yeah, that Clip Studio Paint, the same one almost everybody in the comic book game is using these days. Mike, you do a lot of work with Clip, don't you?
Yeah, I do Judge Parker completely. Well, actually, I do Judge Parker and I do the Phantom. I do them both digital. I ink both digital, but I pencil the Phantom, still pencil it traditionally, but I ink in Clip Studio, which is much better than trying to ink in Photoshop.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's still some diehards who are just have been using Photoshop so long. It's almost like, well, why would I learn something new at that point? And we know how superstitious cartoonists are, right? You get
They're like baseball players, right? You get something you like, never wash your underwear.
That's right. And what's going on? We got a bunch of superstar cartoonists checking in. What up, Art? What's up, John Gallagher? How are you? Also, I almost forgot. We are also sponsored by our good buddy John Morrow, who is the publisher at Two Morrows Publishing, the publishing house of Mike Manley's Draw magazine. Mike, so what's going on with that draw sale? Are there still issues?
I don't know if John still has a sale going on, but we're getting down to the bottom of the actual last physical copies. So in the future, all copies will be available always digital. And I think he does actually have a digital bundle where you can get a deal if you don't have them. Or if you want to get brand spanking digital copies, he has a deal going.
I had digital bundles in high school. It cleared up after a couple of weeks.
They have to scrape them right off.
They gave me a special little code, and it just cleared right up. It was great. What's up, everybody? Checking in. Let me introduce myself. My name is Jamar Nicholas, the ambassador of Philadelphia, the Kevin Bacon of comic books, and your internet best friend. Well, hello. I am the co-host and producer of this fine podcast, joined by the proverbial hip by my best bud, Mike Manley. There he is. Say hi, Mike.
Right there.
There he is.
Right there.
My arm doesn't go that way. I have some frozen shoulder, Mike. Did I tell you that?
Really? Everybody. What's with everybody? Like you hit 50 and everybody gets frozen shoulder.
Yeah, I got frozen shoulder, bro. I went to.
So you can only go so far with your shoulder now?
I better get my arms up just in case I get pulled over. Gotta get those up. Gotta get them high. But yeah, I went to the doctor. The doctor was like, "Put your arm up like this." I'm like, "I can't. This is as far as it's going."
He goes, "Put your arm like that," and then he took your wallet.
That's right. Yo, that happened in Paris. Well, I didn't get pickpocketed, but if you've ever been to the Eiffel Tower, it's like a hotbed for pickpockets, right? So what they do is they just kind of stand around and they wait for people to pull out their cameras and go like that. The second you put your arms up, somebody comes in for your wallet. No lie, and it's like clockwork.
So what did you have, like mouse traps in your pockets?
Well, I'm from West Philly, man. You know I had it for them.
You had razor blades in their pocket.
But yeah, guys, welcome back to the podcast. If you're new to Pencil, Mike and I, and sometimes our smiling, disembodied head, Brett Blevins, joins us for a weekly chat with the hoi polloi of comic bookdom and also other lanes in the creative fields. We speak to a lot of comic book artists, cartoonists, illustrators, comic strip artists, film directors, animation people, puppeteers. We kind of cover
panhandlers, panhandlers,
pickpockets, thieves, and crooks.
Right, exactly. That's the publishers. Come on,
we run the gamut. And tonight we have a really special guest on. We'll bring him in a second. But his issue of Draw Magazine, I don't even know if he remembers when we did that. It's probably one of my favorites. You remember that interview, Mike? I think.
Oh,
you
yeah.
I think you interviewed Ron, didn't you?
Yep. Man, that was that's about 10 years ago now. Easy. 10 years, yeah.
Where does the time go?
Well, comic artists measure their career usually like now in trades, right? Like you have all your little trades of all your work.
Yeah.
Right. But it used to, 6 issues of this, 4 issues of this, not like the old days where, it's like 101 issues of something. And then right. Nobody gets to do that. I guess, except Eric Larson now. Right. Still doing the Dragon. But that's how that's how I sort of measure my career, by stacks of like rings in a tree, or like sediment layers. Oh, that was 2 years I did this, or the 4 years I did that.
Yeah, I mean it's fantastic. And I think back then Ron was doing Cap, right? I think that was his big book.
Yeah, he was doing Cap. He was doing Cap then, and then he had gone. I think why don't we bring him in?
Yeah, we'll talk to him about it,
and then we can talk because he also went to DC after that.
All right, well, let's bring in our best bud Ron Garney and see if he's available. Hey, Ron. Oh. Ron, you there? Should we close the blinds? Are you all right? How you doing?
This podcast is sponsored by AMA, our new sponsor.
Oh man! So what are you sipping on tonight, Ron? What do you got there?
I've got some Screwball peanut butter whiskey.
Oh wow!
Does it taste like peanut butter?
It does. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I have Jack Daniels there when I want something a little more potent, but this is so tasty I can't resist. By the way, I've got 3D glasses on. Oh shit! It's weird because it actually works. You're like I can rub Mike's head.
Well, look at that, man! That's fantastic.
Jamar's hair
especially with the red and blue effects going on.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh my god, I look like one of those aliens from the old kind of.
That's fantastic. Hey Ron, let me ask you a question before we get into the deep diving. Have you ever bought anything from the back of a comic book?
From the
like X-ray specs or sea monkeys?
I think I bought. The sea monkeys sound familiar. That might have happened. I do recall buying the Charles Atlas 10-cent, thing. For 10 cents, you get the secrets of dynamic tension.
Right.
Because, all you had to do is read this book and your muscles will go boing. Dynamic tension. But I was I had to have been 5 years, 6 years old. Something like that. That's long ago.
I got sea monkey. I bought sea monkeys too, and I remember you see that little drawing, and they look like they're going to be like little kings and queens, and then it's just like brine shrimp.
I know the drawing of the I know it shows my wife they look like something out of the Grinch. They were brine shrimp or something, right?
Yeah, they're brine. Yeah. They're brine shrimp. Yeah. Did they actually show up?
As I recall, they did. And I don't know if they worked. I think they might have worked. It was so long ago, but I remember a fish. See, when I was growing up, we owned a fish store.
Oh, wow.
And we had tropical fish from all over the world in this little store out in the middle of nowhere where I lived. And but it was really cool. So I recall putting them, it was my sister or somebody put them in a tank. And I think they kind of were moving around or whatever.
They kind of would pop every once in a while, or kind of move a little bit,
like that. Like they just kind of, and then they die within a day.
my kingdom ruined.
I always wanted the trunk of Army Men, but I never ordered it.
I did get that one that Russ Heath did the drawing for. That's like 101 Army Men, where you get the little tanks and the But it was nothing like that magnificent illustration, of course.
I remember sending in $2 bills in cash for a subscription to a Marvel title. I can't remember what it was, but surprise, surprise, it never came.
Oh,
you didn't? It never showed up.
Well, not with $2 bills.
Oh well, yeah.
Stan opened that envelope. Thanks, Ron.
That would be funny. Also, the scene switches. It cuts to Stan 40 years ago, looking at stuffing it in his pocket.
That's right. Yeah. He's going to Carnegie Deli on you, Ron Garney.
He's like, F this kid. Who cares about him? $2 went a long way back then.
That's fantastic. Our buddy Tim asked about that.
Mike, you have the time way off. That thing we did was, I think, 2004.
Okay.
Oh, wow. It was even longer.
I wasn't on Cap. I was doing Superman.
Right. Because the cover was Superman. Right.
JLA was doing or something, I think. And but that was like 2003, 2004. So it was a long time ago.
Right. It's all mashing together now.
Yeah. You've done a lot of those, huh?
Yeah. What's been like 36 issues?
36. Yeah, 36 issues. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
So so when did you start at Marvel? What year was that?
89.
89. Okay.
Yeah. It was 89, but I had been goofing around with samples and working as a sort of an apprentice kid to this guy, Sal Trapani, who I forgot what he was.
He was like an old gold key artist or something?
Yeah. And he lived in the area, and somebody hooked me up with him. A friend, my friend's wife's father was a comic book fan, and he knew him. And and I showed him my drawings, and so he introduced me to him. And the guy just I would go over, and he would want me to do all his layouts, and and he would teach me little things. It didn't last very long, but he would teach me little things that I actually learned from, in composition and stuff. So it was pretty cool, and then that sort of fell to the wayside. He wanted me to do this monkey comic book strip of a monkey in space called Adam that he wanted to pitch, to somebody. And so I did a bunch of those, and then it just, I just felt like he was kind of using me. So I kind of just let it go. I didn't really follow through with it, but then I kept working on samples. Then I met Mike Zeck, who was, interestingly enough, I got into I think I've told this story a billion times, but it's interesting anyway. Is I was bartending at the time, and a guy behind the bar had a Secret Wars comic, and I picked it up. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. This is like 1984 or 85 or something. Oh, wow, this is amazing, And so I kind of got hooked on it. I didn't read comics since I was little. And then I asked him where he got it. He said down the 24-hour store down the street. So, after my bartending shift, I went down there. And I just sat there. It was like 2 a.m. I'm going through all this stuff. I was like hooked right away. And I picked up some John Byrne stuff even, and Miller, and a bunch of different things. And then I thought to myself, wow, this could be a good thing, because I was out of college. I went to school for illustration and psychology. And I was like, man, what am I going to do with this fucking degree? I loved movie making. I loved the idea of compositions and photography and storytelling and all that in movies. And so all of a sudden, here was all that stuff in short form. Right. So, yet, with the added bonus of it's fun fantasy stuff and superheroes, and I had forgotten all about that stuff. So I'm like looking at them and go, wow. So I got bit by the bug about it right away. And I thought, wow, I could do this. I could try to get into this. And it seemed like such a long shot, because Marvel, seemed so lofty, and like this mecca, like going to Oz to meet the wizard or something, So anyway, I started started drawing, and then I found out through the store owner that Mike Zeck lived in the area. I'm like, oh, the guy who did Secret Wars. I'm like, really? So I looked him up, and sure enough, he was like 6 minutes from my house. And I'm like, holy, you start to think, things are aligning. But, the universe lays paths in front of you, and you can either choose to take them or you can't. And I always choose to do what the universe lays before me. And so I called him, and And he was very gracious. He called me back and said, "Sure, send my stuff," you know. And at first I was like, "Well, maybe we could get." He's like, "No, just send it through the mail." I was gonna say I'm a bartender. Come by my bar.
Get off my lawn. Just leave your samples. Back away. Back away.
And it's like, no, that's okay. And I'm like, I was like, oh yeah, sorry, sure, I'll send it to you. So I sent it to him, and he called me back, and I sat with him for a good half an hour or so, and he told me everything I needed to work, but he thought they were pretty good. He was like, these aren't bad. And at one point he had said to me, I'm used to getting samples from people that suck. And he said, yours didn't really suck. I mean, they sucked, but they didn't suck, So, actually, I wish I had some. I would show them to you. I have them somewhere, like my actual samples that I was sending to him. And so we went over that stuff, and or maybe I did in the Draw magazine. Did I?
There might have been some stuff, yeah.
So anyway, so I continued talking. I told him, I said, come down to my bar, I'll buy you a drink. Thank you so much. I didn't know if anything would ever come of it, but he showed up at my bar, and I got him pretty sauced probably, and but anyway, he invited me to a convention nearby in Connecticut. Invited me to sit behind his table. I wasn't even in the business or anything, and I'm like, and draw, and I'm like, oh shit, this is great, and there were a couple other people at the table. I think Mike DiCarlo, who was working on Batman with
Aparo,
with Jim Aparo,
yeah,
and then Renee Witterstetter, who was Mike's girlfriend, who was an editor at Marvel, was there. And who else was there? Maybe Bob Smith, who was an anchor, or somebody, I think.
Yeah.
But Mike had just done Return to Big Nothing, that Punisher oversized thing. And that was a huge success. And so he was signing a bunch of those, and I was sitting next to him and drawing, and it was just like, whoa, this is such a trip. And I ended up playing volleyball with, a bunch of them over time. And then he finally called me up one day. He said, listen, he said, you're ready, let's go into Marvel. I'm going into Marvel. I'm going to bring you in. Like, get the hell out of here, So sure enough, he brought me in, and I was with him. It was him and some other kid named Larry Alexander. I don't know where it became of him, but he wanted to get in. He was pretty good, as I remember, but I don't know whatever happened to him. But we went around first to DC, and I believe Renee was she there at the time, or she in Marvel? I don't remember. But we went to DC first, and I got a job offer right away. I walked in and showed the sample. They're like, "Hey, can you do Animal Man?" I'm like, "Sure." Like, okay. And so they said this guy Chaz Truog, who was an artist, turned it down or something, and it was being written by Grant Morrison. And they said, but let's see you do 7 pages or 8 pages of it first this week. See if you get them done. And so I slaved on these freaking things, pulling all-nighters. I was like, I wasn't going to blow this, I mean, I went from, I came from a very poor background. I grew up, and then once I put myself through college through loans that, and I was defaulting on those, and I was trying to pay water bills. I was just boiling hot water on the stove to wash myself because I couldn't afford. I was, living on $50 a week sometimes if it was that bad in bartending, And
so you were bartending while you were still trying to get in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's all I did. I was a nightclub manager in the mid '80s. I managed this place called Daniels, and then I co-managed Montego Bay, the sister club across New Haven. And that was a hairy existence. I mean, I was a bouncer first. I started out as a bouncer in '81, and while I was in college. And here I am, a college kid, I'm having to throw people out of bars at 2 a.m. And so I did that, and then I finally. I went to work at this place called Sherman's Tavern as the bartender waiter. And that's when I saw the comic. But while I was doing that, I got asked to manage this nightclub by the owner of the place I used to bounce at, because he liked me, thought I had a good way with people, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I started managing the nightclub. And so that took up so during that whole time, I was still working on samples and talking to Mike, So during all that, I was a nightclub manager, bartender, and then Mike brought me in, and it changed. Everything changed right away.
Wow.
as soon as I got that gig offer. You know, I didn't want to blow it, and so I did those samples, and then, you know, and the funny thing is, I did those samples, but, you know, when I left DC, we went over to Marvel and showed my stuff around. By the time I got home, I had 3 offers on my answering machine from Ralph Macchio, Bobby Chase, and Danny Fingeroth.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, you know, like all of a sudden, you know, and I was like, what the hell, you know? And so I did the 7 pages or 8 pages, whatever it was, of Animal Man. And then when I turned them in, when I went back in, I brought them in personally, and they said Chaz Truog changed his mind.
No, wow.
Yeah. So my fate was sealed. You know, I called up Bobby Chase, I think it was, said, sure, I'll do it. She wanted me to do G.I. Joe, a one-shot. Turns out she wanted me to do the whole book. They were testing me. So that was a real trial by fire, because with the G.I. Joe stuff, everything had to be exact. Every tank, because they had the Hasbro.
Right.
You know, so I had every piece of rent. I got all these action figures in the mail and stuff, and I'm like, you know, and I had never done a regular book before. I mean, I could draw, but I had never been thrust into it like that, you know.
Yeah, and then something very specific like that, where like you've got to have the licensors got to say, yeah, that looks just like.
Exactly.
You know.
By the end of that month, I was like, I don't know if I picked the right career, because I was a lot more social than that, I guess, being a bartender and things like that. And it was for a month, over a month, I'm just so isolated working, you know. But again, I still persevered because I didn't want to blow a good career opportunity, you know. So I was like, you know what, suck it up, be a fucking man, you know, and get in there and do it, you know. Don't complain, do it. So I did it. I was pulling all-nighters, and, you know, I did it. And then Danny Fingeroth, in the meantime, called me again and asked me if I wanted to do Moon Knight as a regular gig. So I said, sure, because I was under the impression Bobby just wanted me to do 1 issue of G.I. Joe. But it turned out she wanted to ask me to do that as a regular book. So I guess there was a big fight over at Marvel over it. It is my first time, you know, they're fighting over this nonsense. So, and that wasn't nonsense, but you know what I mean. And, I mean, it felt great, but I guess they had to adjust the communications going on at Marvel because of that, because Bobby got pissed at Danny. And
Don't poach my artist.
Yeah, basically. So now now it's completely the opposite. Now it's like, you can't do it. They won't even let you do a convention if the editor, you know, they won't ask you to conventions if the editor says you're, you know. It's just very tightly, you know, wound that way now.
Hey, Ron, before we get too far from this, I'd love to know how, like, what were some of your struggles doing those early pages? Because it sounds they just threw you right into the water. And like, were you struggling just with, I don't know, the storytelling, maybe some of your shots, or did you have a lifeline that you called for some help?
Yeah, well, obviously Mike was there, but he, you know, it was during Animal Man, those pages, I was asking him, what do you think? And he finally said to me, he said, look, got to do this on your own, you know. I mean, and I get it. Obviously, he was kind of like a mentor that way. He said, you know, I can't help you because at some point it's going to show up what I'm doing, and you have to be able to do it. And so for me, it was just boom, I got thrown into the pot right away.
Right.
And so I was, you know, I would do it. I was doing it. And I just remember one scene in particular where there were all these vehicles coming out of an opening in the desert, like some trap door in the desert was open. All the vehicles are coming out and flying out at night. And getting all those things in perspective and having them be exact. And I was just like, oh, you know, people don't realize how hard it is. Right? You know, it's not an easy vocation. You know, you get into a rhythm over time, over years of doing it, you get good at it. But in the beginning, it is, you know, it's tough. It's not.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is that
anybody really, I didn't go to Kubert school or anything like that, so I was just learning by looking at other people. You know, like even Mike. I think Mike was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember I looked at him look at his stuff. Throughout time, I was just looking at everybody and learning and seeing, oh, okay, I see what they were thinking there. And I remember Mike had a great sense of composition himself. So that's really how I learned,
And you really have to learn on the job, because one of the things about doing those kinds of books is that, or like your first opportunity is you want to take advantage of what opportunity comes your way, and it may not have been the thing that you would choose to do, right? You wouldn't maybe necessarily choose to draw G.I. Joe, but you don't want to say no.
Right.
Well, yeah, I didn't really want to get into supernatural stuff either, and I ended up doing that. Sorry for a sec. Sorry, everybody. I'm just noticing all these questions.
Oh, don't worry about that. That's that. I'll put things on the screen if it adds.
Hi, Suzanne. Suzanne Marengo.
Yeah.
Hey, all these nice. It's so great to see you here. Yeah. So you're right. I mean, when I was doing Midnight Suns, honestly, I wanted to get in. My samples for Marvel were cap samples, and I wanted to do Superman. Was always my dream. I still never got to do that. That's the only one I would ever want to do again. That Batman is a regular type, but who doesn't break it down? But so I was doing Midnight Suns, and it was the Night Stalkers, and it was a lot of very, and I love Dan Chychers. He's a great writer. He was very influenced by Clive Barker at the time, so it was very gory, and sort of sadomasochistic, and it's. There were people with knives going through their skin, and people squirting. There were characters squirting, other characters with stomach acid and intestine. I'm like, how did I go from the Sentinel of Liberty to squirting people with stomach acid?
The Sentinel of Intestines.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Sentinel of sadomasochism. But so that's what I. But again, I was just like Jamar said, I was willing to do it and just and pay whatever earn my dues, and so it didn't matter to me as long as I just kept going the path that kept revealing itself. So, and here I am talking to you guys.
Well, but at some point you probably started to make different decisions as a penciler, right? At a certain point, like you weren't just going to take everything that was offered to you. You started being a little bit more choosy, right?
I had to learn how to say no, because when I agreed to do Moon Knight, I also took on a Daredevil fill-in, a Morbius fill-in, the Living Vampire. That was, I think, by the time I kept agreeing to do everything because I didn't want to say no to the editors for fear, that it just shows. I mean, I was naive, inexperienced, and I was also trying to be uber dependable and get the stuff done on time. And so I was getting the calls because I would get it done, and it wasn't bad per se. I mean, if I look back, I say it's freaking awful, horrible. Look at it now. But at that time, there was, I don't think the standards were quite as high that time for what they were putting through.
Well, things were a little bit looser. I mean,
yeah.
Even talking about the fact that you could go up to Marvel, you could go around and see all the different editors. That's not something you can do now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
No, you can't. Well, now you have to practically have a security guard walk you around there. You're not allowed to take a picture of the statue. Nothing. Now they have it keep very tightly.
Yeah.
They're afraid you're going to take a picture of the script. So it's not the same place it was when I was going. What is that echo? I hear a big echo and a lot of background. Is that?
Oh wow, yeah, I hear it too.
Yeah.
Well, we might be able to fix it, Ron, if you have some headphones.
Yeah, I do. My son.
Yeah.
All right. Regardless,
we'll work through it.
Yeah, no problem. So anyway, yeah. So it was trial. Where was I? I was saying something about Marvel was very tightly, and is now very tight that way. It was much looser back then. They would take guys on who were more dependable, I think, than anything, And then we went.
Well, that's also what they wanted. I mean, they wanted people who could turn out 6 issues, 10 issues in a row. It's kind of like not that now. It seems like they get people to do like 3 or 4, then they hop you off.
Well, I get it. See, it was phasing it. I came in right as it was phasing. Yeah, it was. I was on the heels of John Buscema and these guys who could do 5 pages a day and still be great. Phenomenal. And so I wanted to be that, and I just assumed I could do that and be fast and be like him. It was a little bit harder than that. It was. So by the time I would say, we got through that weird, uber strange Jim Lee phase, where everybody was doing, it was just a Frankenstein's monster. Everybody's work trying to beat Jim Lee and Scott Williams. It was just weird, And so then that phased out, and then quality started happening. I think, I would say maybe in the in the mid to late 90s, quality started picking up. And
after the kind of the bubble popped.
Yeah, for sure. And then the full script started happening, and at first I was resistant to it because I always wanted to be the artist on the book, and I wanted to be there for the fans every month, because I remembered when I had gotten back into it and I was reading them, how I couldn't wait to see the artist I liked, like Walt Simonson. And then whenever it was a different artist, it would throw me right out of the escape.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was conscious of that, cognizant of that for the fans. I didn't want to give up being so regular. But then I started seeing how I could use it to my advantage because it gave me time to get better. Because I could do arcs, So I would do 4 issues, and then somebody would come on for 2 issues, and I could slow down, take a breather, and I wouldn't get so burnt out so fast. And then I could actually pay more attention and not feel so threatened by the specter of the deadline hanging over,
Right.
So I really learned to appreciate that aspect of where the industry's gone. The downside of it is that you don't have as much control over what you put on the paper. When I was working on Captain America, for instance, with Wade, I was pretty responsible for laying that whole book out because he would just give me a 4 or 5 page plot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in these few pages, Cap's doing this and that, and then I would just set it up whatever way I wanted, and it was a ball. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I was really kind of developing this interesting storytelling thing. I think was playing around with that quite a bit, how the eye flows from one panel to the next, and trying to give the illusion of movement throughout the panel. I was thinking in reverse, like instead of movement happening in front of you, I was trying to make your eye create the movement because your eye is moving. So I would try to make the figures from panel to panel go in a certain direction, so when your eye moved, the figure was moving with your eye. So I was trying to make these things happen through the panels, and honestly, I do think that's probably why, maybe unbeknownst to people, but I do think that's why people were connecting with my Cap stuff so much, because I've looked at it with a critical eye, and it's not the greatest artistic work, but the storytelling was interesting, and I think that was part. Actually, Mike, we worked on that together.
Yeah.
So, and that's another example of me blowing through an issue. I think I did, what was that, 18 pages in like a week or something of breakdowns, because I was trying to be Buscema. I thought I could, and I wanted to be one of those guys, and
that's a heavy lift.
Yeah, I did it on a few occasions. Ralph Macchio, I think he'll tell you that on that issue, because he was the editor on that issue. He didn't believe I was going to do it. I said, I'll have it done by next Monday or Tuesday.
Wow.
He said, okay, I don't believe you, but okay. And I brought that mother effer in. And he was like, holy shit. So my value was good there in that department. But what happened was ultimately it worked against me later. Because when I came back to Cap after the whole Heroes Return, Andy Kubert and Mark Waid had been talking because they did Tazar together. And even though I was fast, Andy was better and more developed. Had a more interesting look to him. I love, Andy's working great. It's nothing against him, but that's why what happened, because I was working on being fast, and they appreciate it, but they're going to go with the better artist overall. You know what I mean? They're still going to dump it for the hotter girlfriend.
Or they're going to call you in when they need the fire put out.
Or they're going to call you in what?
When you need the fire put out. When we don't have a long deadline.
Exactly. I don't want to be, and I remember this is really burning me up. That, more than even being taken off Cap, being replaced by Andy and taken off again, that actually bummed me out, pissed me off more than the life. Because it was so, after everything, I came back to it, and it was just such a slap in the face. I'm like, really? You're going to dump me on the, and it was and they tried to give me Sentinel of Liberty. It was more of a, it just felt like a consolation prize, because the star title was Captain America.
Yeah.
Right.
So to me, the Prestige, it was a step down a little bit, but I did it, and I, but it was fueling my fire quite a bit. It's probably something I needed to. Hi, Myra. It was something I needed to go through.
Well, Ron, yes. I have a nice little sip of water for you right here. Our buddy D. Brad Gibson says, "OMG, hello, Ron. I'm currently reading my Captain America: Man Without a Country epic collection. One of my favorites."
Oh, nice. One of my favorites too. That's a big, heavy book.
Yeah.
Oh wait, actually, the what is that just came out? What do they call those? The omnibus. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That came out yearly, so I think it's huge. But so yeah, so it worked against me, and but it was also, good for me in the long run. I was taking these little setbacks as fuel. It made me very competitive. I realized, because growing up I was always able to draw, and I took it for granted. But it was the competition I needed, to get better. I needed motivation. And what better motivation than to feel like you want to go and compete against guys like the Q-Birds or any of these. They're all great.
I think that's something we forget about too. When you look back at the era of the stuff that we admire, Q-Bert was competing with Heath, was competing with Toth, was competing with Kirby, was competing with Gene Cole. All those guys are all working at the same time, and like, oh yeah, they had to step up when Steranko came in.
Exactly, that's exactly what my attitude was. I would look at something, or JR would do, or Adam,
right.
And I'd be like, I'm gonna kick your fucking.
You can.
I'm gonna kick your butt, and not in a bad way, in a good way.
Right, yeah.
And it was a healthy thing. I looked at it and I get motivated. I would see something they would do, and I would, the trick was learning to appreciate it over time, and not. You can be competitive, I guess, but you can't try to be them. You have to be yourself, and that's the biggest lesson I would give anybody. Don't try to be Jim Lee. Don't try to be, anybody. Don't try to be me. Don't try to be Travis Charrett. Don't try to be Adam Hughes. Don't try to be Mike Manley. Don't try to be John Vader Jr. Be you. Look at those guys, get motivated by it, and then trust your instincts for you to come through onto that page. And that instinct, the instinct is when you look at something and there's a little thing that you go, it's like a moment of awareness where you know something's wrong. Trust that. Trust that there's something wrong with that page. And then put it aside, go away from it for a while, or start on another one, come back to it, and it'll reveal itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So would you do that? Would you put stuff away if you were struggling with, and then jump to another part, and then come back and find a solution?
I still do that. I still do it. It's one of the best. I can't speak for anyone else. That's me. I look at the stuff and I trust that instinct. I know there's something wrong. That I'm not solving the puzzle. It's what's funny about it is sometimes you're working over here and there's something bothering you, but it's your peripheral vision on a panel up here. and you go, there's something about this whole thing that's bugging the crap, but you're focused over here, and the reason you're not getting it right away is because you're focused over here. But you know there's something in your brain, because for me, I tend to look overall at the pages, like, you know, like set them up and
like you zoom out is
Yes.
kind of what I call it. Yeah.
So do you lay out a whole bunch at one time? Do you lay out the whole thing? Because I think I remember JR would lay out a whole bunch of stuff at one time. Frank Miller would lay out a whole bunch of stuff at one time.
I'll do the whole issue first. I lay out the whole issue, do all the layouts. And I get them to what I do is I get them to the point where I'm satisfied that I want to. Not that they're fully penciled, but that I don't need to change anything compositionally. I don't need to change where the figures are. I don't need to change that. Everything is in place for me to finally go in, and that's when I, you know, and the little thing I'll look at it and I'll go, gotcha, and I know I have it. You know what I mean? And I trust it. Just trust it. I don't go backwards and start second guessing and, oh gee, what if, you know, don't do that, because that can be a bane of your existence. You keep second guessing what you do. You have to just get in there, trust it. When it's there, it's there. And you know it's there.
So what was the first series or title that you remember doing that on, where you laid out the whole thing?
Well, interestingly, when I would do those here and there, when I would do those things for deadline reasons, I would do 4 pages a day. You know, so I was sort of used to doing that anyway. You know? But I realized getting into this rhythm that, you know, that I got into a rhythm that worked for me over trial and error. You know, over years and years, and it's 35 years. Trial and error, doing it. And the best way that works for me, do it, put it aside, do it, put it aside, you know, and then I go back, and I look at it again, and I see those things pop out of me. That's what needs to work. So change it, and I work on that some more. I go again, I go in, and that's it. I just keep going back and then refining it until I'm finally ready for the ink, you know, to be finished and to really go through. And I know when that happens. I do the whole issue, and then I work the first 10, work them, and then I get them where they're ready. And then I finish those 10, and then I go to the next half. And so I do it, and it works for me production-wise. It's like, you know, you turn yourself into a bit of a machine.
Right.
But you can keep the quality level up that way, so you can get the best of both worlds. Like, instead of, you know, like, you know, Howard Porter, for instance, you know, he's a good friend. I still talk to him. We Skype a lot. He still goes through that trouble, like where he'll do the whole page, pencil it, you know, to the end, and then he'll turn it in, and then it's too late. And I always tell him, you got to put it aside, because, and he'll say, oh, I hate the way that figure came out, or, you know, and he's pretty amazing. You know, he doesn't realize how good he is. But, you know, yeah. Everybody has their weaknesses, but he's so amazing in his strength that who cares? You know, it's just really great to look at, interesting, unique to him. So, but I tell him, I'm like, I tell you, you gotta go, you gotta put it aside. Don't do it all the way through. But that's his way. He can't, you know, he's been doing it almost as long. He's been doing it about 25, 30 years himself. And so that's his way. So
like everybody has their rhythm. Like everybody has a rhythm, a way of working. I remember that's a hard thing to learn in the beginning, because nobody really tells you about that process of laying stuff out. Like that's sort of like there needs to be the how to draw comics the Marvel way, but like actually how to lay out stories, because nobody really ever, there's no real good book on that. I mean, there's the Eisner book, which works for the way that he tells a particular type of story, but working for Marvel, where I give you a plot and they go, page 14 to 17, Captain America and the Red Skull fight over the nuclear reactor, and at the end, something happens, right? You sort of have to have your gut. You have your gut instinct, which is what you're talking about, that tells you at a certain point when you go back, like, I'm not happy with this part, but there's been no real, I don't know if Joe taught that at a school, but for guys like us who didn't go to a school to do comics,
right,
you have to sort of like learn that through the process. There's, like I said, there's never really been like a book on like, this is how you lay out from a plot.
In a way, I will say that learning it through trial by fire, like I was saying, is almost better. I can't say better, but it certainly ingrains in you your particular exclusive principles. You know, like if I were to go to the keyword school, I'm going to learn that method, you know, and I might, but the way I handle doing the work might not be as original to me, you know, because if I'm just doing their process, you know, it's great. You have that, you know, it's Kubert. So I learned so much from all those guys, but Joe, you know, huge.
Well, yeah, he's like the king of page layout, that guy.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you learn all that stuff. However, I again, like you and I, we learned on our own. Through trial by fire. So there's something to be said about that. Where it also opens the door up for you to be clever and be really creative, you know, in your ways of handling what you put down. You know, I will say Zach had said to me one time, or somebody, maybe it was Zach, you know, he said, well, my stuff was interesting to look at because of that, you know, because you could see I was trying to find clever ways to tell the story.
Maybe also because you had that break where you didn't read comics and you went and did other stuff, and then you came back, where like a lot of guys come in and they go straight from reading it as a kid to trying it as a teen, and they don't go out and experience other things. So you sort of, because we all...
You mean like dating?
Yeah, right. You dated other kinds of art.
About that. Alex Ross was like doing it since he was like 4 years old.
Right.
He had no life. When I met him, he was like this. He's a great guy. I'm good friends with him, but he was like this social, sort of like just uncomfortably social because he spent all his years just cooped up painting, and he obviously see the result of that. And he's come out of his shell a lot now. You know, but when I first met him, I could see that he had sheltered for a long time.
Well, it is part of the business where you have to be comfortable spending a lot of time like this far from a piece of paper. And
well, I'll tell you, that's funny you would say that, because I've been at the point right before I got this gig, you know, the Keanu thing. I was thinking about retiring for that reason, because I had spent so much time in a room and the world was going on outside me, and all the experiences, a lot of the experiences I'm having are through comic books, you know, and somebody else's sort of distilled, you know, vision, some writer, you know, how they view the world and whatever. And so it was starting to really get to me, and it still is. I mean, working on this book, I'm feeling the effects again, and I just feel like it's time after this. This is my last regular gig. I need to. I've got 4 children. I need to. And it's not that I don't spend time with them. I do as much.
Like one day they're like 50. Like, hey, what the hell?
That's part of it. Yeah. I mean, my son's as tall as I am. It's yesterday. He was this. And but it's even beyond that. You know, I want to start experiencing the world again, aside from comic. You know, I want to do paintings again. Because I started out as a painter. You know, I was doing paintings. Maybe you've seen it. I don't know if you've ever seen it in my painting.
Yeah, you show, and there were some you did some illustrations you did showed in that issue of Draw.
Oh, okay. There's some on Instagram of some paintings I've done, you know, but actually I have 4 paintings.
Well, Ron, while you're getting some show and tell for it, so I have a. Oh, wow, look at that. Hold on, let me give you the screen. Yeah. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic.
That's on your Instagram too, right?
Yeah, I did, and it got printed, you know, so it was fun for me because I started out as a fantasy illustrator like Frazetta, and I wanted to be that. I was a big fan of Frazetta and Boris and those guys, and, you know, it's funny, I remember Alex didn't believe me, you know, and I had, you know, finally he was like, holy shit, you actually can paint. You know? And So yeah, because yeah, sure, Ron, you were painting. I'm like, no, I really was, but whatever, So yeah, so that's what I had wanted to do, and I want to get back to that. And it doesn't even have to be superhero stuff. I would love to just go and be Wyeth for a while. I just want to get back to. And I grew up in the country, and I have that in me, and I've lived this life of this modern, everything's Iron Man and blasters and punches. And I'm kind of at that age now where I'm going,
Well, Ron, I have a question from the room.
Not that I don't appreciate it. Go ahead, sorry.
I have a question from the room, and this will kind of tie into kind of like getting away from comics for a second. The queen of pencil to pencil, Suzanne Warren. What's up, Suze?
Hey,
says, how did you get the costume illustrator gig for I Am Legend, that Will Smith vehicle?
That's a very charming picture of you, Suzanne. I know. Let's all do this for Suzanne. Anyway, how did I get that gig? Howard actually got contacted by a guy who wanted to know who he knew, wanted to know if he knew anybody who had like a Mobius-ish kind of thing going on with their work. And I had done Silver Surfer around a while back, and I was deliberately going for that. It was the only book I deliberately wanted to do Mobius on purpose, just to dig into that stuff, because it's so freaking incredible. Everybody at least who gets into this business should at least try deliberately as hard as they can to be someone else. Even though it's contrary to what I said before, overall you shouldn't try to. But just for the learning experience and trying to get into that suit that they wear, like Mobius, I just wanted to be in that and try it. So I was trying it in a lot of ways. And then it sort of phased into just me doing it myself. But early on, I was really having fun trying to get a Mobius feel for it. Anyway, so I'm digressing. So this guy called me through Howard. He asked if I would be interested in coming in to meet the costume director for I Am Legend. And I was like, I didn't know if I could do it because I was working on SpiderMan. I'm like, but sure, I'm not going to, again, there's a path that's open. I'm going to take that path. I'm going to go down there and see what this is like, And so I did it. And I went in, and the guy loved my work. He was screening a bunch of different guys and showed me all these different guys. He's like, no, I want your stuff. I love it. Because I had some pencil work with color that I did in there, and he just loved it. That work comic really just figures and hands, and I showed him that stuff with light brushes and watercolor, and he just loved it. So I got the gig, and so I was going in doing Spider-Man, and then going into the city and working on that. I don't know how I did it in hindsight, but I think part of it was my son was born, and I was just so elated and over the moon, and just things were going good. I went through a real downtime in the late 90s or early 2000s when my career was really hitting the skids. I was going through some very personal problems. So things went awry for a while, but I was starting to come out of that and get out of my funk over things. And so, and then my son, I was married, my son, and that came along, and it was just great. I loved it. I went in, and what was great about it is I went in there, and this guy he'd come in while I was working. I was working in the studio.
So you would go into New York City, into the studio for whatever.
Okay. Right. So they had separate buildings, but I was in the costumes building with the costume director, and then the other building was production guys. And, it was just this whole area that they rent to make the movie. So, so I was going there, and I would sit and I would be working out the designs and things like that, and then the guy would look over my shoulder and go, yeah, this looks a little, and it was like a real revelation of somebody like show me instantly what was wrong with it. Like, whereas before, like working comics, you don't get that benefit. Right. You have to figure it out over time yourself. But this guy was instantly, that doesn't look right. I'm like, holy shit, he's right. It doesn't look right. And so my growth I started growing again. I just grew like from that. So then by the time I got over Spider-Man, I went on it to get Mystique, this Wolverine story. You could see the dramatic different shift in my work and how I was getting more comfortable with the figures. And it was just a big dramatic shift. Plus, I was just doing straight shot from pencils. So, part of the problem I was having over the years was always working with all these different inkers, and I was finding it frustrating because I couldn't be me 100%. So I really wanted to move away from, now that we could just shoot from pencils, even though I didn't have the time to ink them all myself, I could at least put in more things that were more instinctive to me personally, rather than me trying to tailor the work to an inker. There's nothing against any inker; they're all great. Just, I was finding myself frustrated. I worked with some amazing guys, legends like Sal Buscema and Paul Palm, dramatically different. But being underneath those guys, it's as great as they are. It's still, you're losing your identity. Right. And I was finding that with every single inker I worked with, I would lose a little bit of me in there. And so, or at least what I was striving to be, I couldn't open myself up because I was tailoring it for that. And it wasn't the craft I wanted to do.
Right. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
There's a bunch of questions, and we're the big elephant behind the curtain is Keanu, and we'll get to that at the end of this. But I wanted to kind of work our way to it.
Yeah, I'm being so chatty because I have peanut butter whiskeys.
well, this is what
you back off, buddy.
This is why we get paid the big bucks. Yeah, there's going to be there's some sparring going on.
That's right. Now we're sponsored by Dewar's Scotch.
That's right. Thanks for your question, Suze. Brendan Price, hey Brendan, asks, would love if you spoke a little about Men of Wrath with Jason Aaron. You changed the polishing on your style for that book and then brought those changes to Daredevil afterwards. At least that's what it seemed like. Can you elaborate on that?
We'd love if you spoke a little on that. Real quick, sorry, Matt, I didn't realize you were talking about your wife there when you said back off. I get it. Anyway.
Yeah, I figured we could
back off of Suzanne. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. No, I thought he was just telling me to back off. Anyway. So we'd love if you spoke a little bit about changing the policy and stuff. PDF. At least that's what. Yes, very much so. On Men of Wrath, that's when I committed to finally just inking my own work. I knew I didn't want to do pencils forever. I always thought that scanned pencils have a beauty to them. And there's something there that if it's done well, it's one of the most beautiful things you can see with color and, because you get the textures, and it's just really cool. But I knew I wanted to ink. I needed to go back to ink, and really get to go there. And I had inked my run on JLA for the first bunch of issues on that. But it was so, it was always like, I want everything in yesterday. And, I couldn't spend the time on it I wanted. So with Men of Wrath, because it wasn't a regular house book, I knew I could spend the time, working on that aspect of it, just inking the stuff, and getting used to doing it regularly and all the time. So that's basically what motivated that. By the time I got to Daredevil was revelatory for me personally and artistically, because I started seeing things that I could do, with whiteout and with negative space, and also because the character is conducive for that,
Right.
It's not like the X-Men where you can do a negative space whiteout, sort of thing that works for the characters. And I always like doing single characters anyway for that reason, so I can bring something unique to each character. But with Daredevil, I've always had this thing, like with Cap, I could see things instantly. You just had an affinity for what I would want to do. Daredevil was the same way. I was offered it, and boom, instantly had all these ideas in my head, spinning around how I wanted to look, color, everything, color-wise, everything. So that's what that was motivated. I wanted the book to look like we're all looking through Matt Murdock's eyes at each page. That you're Matt Murdock looking at his own story. So that's the way I put it.
Very cool.
I'm talking way too much.
No, this is what we do every week, man. This is
what it's all about. This is the secret sauce, man.
This is shop talk. You know, I want to. Hold on one second. There was a question from our buddy Tim Ogline that I wanted to bring up. There was a question about Heroes Reborn. Let me see if I can find it real quick. There's a lot going on in the scroll over here. But Tim basically asked about that period of time where Heroes Reborn got dropped on you guys. And here it is. Tim says, was a Heroes Reborn sprung on you, and Wade, did you intend to have a longer run?
Yeah.
Thanks, Tim.
Sort of sprung. I think Wade called me up in his very distinctive voice and said, hey, I think something's going on over at Marvel Cat. I think we're going to get taken off the book. That's my Mark Williams. Anyway, so yeah, he mentioned it to me, and then I heard it maybe from Ralph Macchio, and then I got a call from Bob Harris, and he said, yeah. And he's like, oh, and at first I was like, what? Yeah, you guys, you're joking, right? What are you talking about? We just started doing this, and it's doing really well, and critical success. And I'm like, but I knew, I wasn't that shocked because it's just business, and I get it. From a business point of view, I get it. They want to sell, hundreds of thousands of copies instead of 50 now. So I get it. And so I wasn't that mad, but I was like, maybe I'll just go to DC or something. And Bob was like, what, are you going to punish Marvel? And I'm like, what are you punishing? You're taking me off the book.
We can punish you, but don't you punish us.
Yeah, I was that punishing. But they offered me pretty much what I wanted to do, and that's how Surfer sort of came about.
Mm-hmm.
So I did Surfer, and then got asked to come back. And that's why, again, because I got asked to come back, and then it went to Cuba, and I got taken off again. That's where I was. That pissed me. That was pretty.
I think that's one of the things that fans don't really. They don't see how the sausage is made and realize that basically during that time, most of the time, it's like a verbal handshake. Hey, do you want to do this thing? Yes, I want to do it. Meanwhile, they're looking. It's like that meme where the guy's walking with the girl, but they're looking at the other girl, right? They're looking at the other artist, and they're like, yeah, I'm holding Ron's arm here, but I'm looking at this other guy over here. And
who does that a lot are writers. I noticed writers like to play. They come up to you, oh, you're the best thing ever, or whatever. But then if they see a hotter artist or someone who's art, that's the problem with it. Is art to a lot of people is like they get spoiled and just like candy. It's like candy, the old Forrest Gump thing. It's like a box of chocolates. Oh, I want to try this flavor, and they don't realize that there are human beings who are doing this stuff, and it's like, and don't treat us like we're these interchangeable entities that are just not, that we're just like, yes, we just love drawing comics, so yeah, do whatever you want with us. We just love to draw.
Right.
It's not like that.
Yeah.
It pisses you off.
This kind of dovetails a little bit into what you were talking about earlier with everybody imitating Jim, because there was a time when a couple guys come along. Those books start selling, and the other editors start kind of subtly like inserting pressure on you, like, well, maybe if you kind of like do stuff this style,
Everybody wants that big payoff, and I get it. I get it. But for me, it's like I just don't like the way I've seen artists. It's not. Some people get it, some people don't. It's not. I've seen it bad at points where artists just get completely taken for granted. I remember seeing something about Sean Phillips or somebody who's an amazing artist, and they just left him off like the whole review of something. And I went in there and bitched the guy. I'm like, listen, man, why are you doing that? They don't comprehend how much time. that we are the ones sitting our asses in these chairs. It takes you 16 minutes to write something. It takes me 16 hours to draw it. You know, it's not, you know, and it's not, we're not just doing it like monkeys. If you throw us peanuts, we're happy.
Right.
You know, we are the major reason comics exist at all. I don't care what anybody says. I'll debate this with anyone. Oh, it's everything. Yeah, it's everything. But by virtue of the fact that it's visual means the artist is the most important thing to make it a comic book. It's not a comic book without the artist. So the artist is technically the most important thing to it being a comic book.
Because the script is still abstract. It's still abstract. Like if you give it to me or Jamar or you, or it's going to look different. It's not always the same. It's got to be interpreted.
And I don't take the writing for granted at all. You know, that's, you know, second to the nature of what a comic book is, the writing's, you know, the most important thing. But because you want a good story to draw, you know. But as far as what this is, make no mistake, the comic book because of us, not because of the writer. If the writer wants to do it without us, then it's just a book. You know, go write a book or a novel.
I also wanted to go back a little bit and ask you about when you're working on the costume design, you said the guy would come up and point out stuff. So was he pointing out stuff that like that works as a drawing but not as a costume? Like it wouldn't work as well in 3D? Like there's a lot of stuff that looks great in comics.
Are you talking about I Am Legend?
Yeah, on the I Am Legend thing. When he would point things out, was he saying like, so you're learning like the difference between what works graphically and what works in like 3D or like what they have to make? Mm-hmm. You know, like I have to make this costume work. Can the guy wear it?
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. Well, that's basically, that was pretty much my job. He would give me all these costume ideas. He was in charge of designing the costumes. Right?
Okay.
And I had to illustrate them for him on these figures so he could see how they look, basically, on these zombies. And Will Smith and the other girl who was in that movie, Sophia Braga. Mm-hmm. And so I had to illustrate. That's why I illustrated Will Smith and her and all the zombies. And so he would give me patterns, right? And then I would look at these patterns, and sometimes I would add things, you know, and say, well, this might look good. You know, I would tear up certain areas, you know, and just make it all look very kinetic and torn. Yeah. You know, like the apocalypse that happened because there were people who were walking the streets who still had their suits on when they turned into a zombie.
Right.
Or they had, you know, a girl was jogging and she had her jogging suit on, you know, things like that. So I did. It was originally supposed to be 3 or 4 drawings. I was just going to go in and do a few. And it turned into like close to 50 or 60.
Wow.
So I was there all the time, you know, like, you know, because he liked them so much. It just kept me there. No, can you keep coming back? Right. Okay. You know, so I did like, you know, and I was burned on it though because you know, I was promised credit, but I, you know, on the screen, you know, and then it didn't get in. I was like, the costume designer was like pissed because he promised me the credit and it didn't get on there. But it turned out they did the credits before I came on. So you know, so what are you gonna do? You know, I'm gonna go to a lawyer and sue them because my name was.
Well, outside of the premiere with your sign.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that seems to be a running thing these days with credit at our people.
Yeah.
Ron, I had a couple of I Am Legends questions from my homeboy Nick Waters. What up, Nick? Nick asked about I Am Legends. So Ron was responsible for Will Smith's M4 in that movie, and also was that part of the costume design process, the gun choice and setup?
Yeah, I don't remember. I didn't design the gun part. I designed his
clothing,
outfit, his long military jacket, shoes, and pants. You know, but that, I don't recall having to help
the weapons. Right?
Did that make you think about changing careers and trying to go into it?
Oh yeah, they had other designers came up with that stuff too. You know, the kind of weapons they would use. I mean, there was another section of artists working on the movie. As like all these 3D animators. So they had some of those designs already in place by the time I came on. I was more of an assistant to the costume designer because he couldn't do it all himself. He actually worked with Cher on Sonny and Cher and all these.
Wow.
He was a costume designer on Blade Runner. And,
wow.
All these things. His name, so.
There's a lot of people that really want to keep us on I Am Legend. Our good buddy, the notorious JRD, asks, did working on Legend inform or influence your character design in comics after the film? It's a good question.
Nice animated drawing of yourself there.
He's a great cartoonist.
Yeah, let's see that. Anyway, we're gonna. Yeah, I did. I think I talked about that a little bit. After I was there, it was nice to have somebody leaning over and telling, so it sort of exponentially made me grow because I had somebody right away helping me, a second set of eyes helping me spot things, which interestingly on BRZRKR was helping me, working with Keanu was an interesting that way. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't say it influenced my character design or the costume designs, but it certainly helped me get a better handle on trusting what was good about penciling figures and putting things together and putting them in costumes and how they fit, So I would say that more than that.
So why don't we get a little bit into the BRZRKR thing, and also talk a little bit more about like you inking your work, because one of the things about inking your own work is now you're not having to pencil for anybody but you. And there's things that you can, I think your inking is more spontaneous now, are you working digitally? Did you switch from working traditionally, or you go back and forth? Or
I go back and forth. If there's something I want to have as an original, fully, I'll do it that way. And there's covers I do, but the one thing I will do sometimes is I'll scan a page in and just print it out in pencil, and then ink that, rather than it making such a mess. It's all pretty much the same. My board, the digital is a piece of paper, just a different kind of it, all the tools are the same. Obviously I'm drawing the same way I would, but yeah, I do a combination of both. I have some of the originals here somewhere. In BRZRKR. There they are. This mess of a studio, but I could probably pull them out. But yeah, I do a combination of both, and so you never want to give up 100% one or the other. I will say, I've said this to other people, that this Photoshop and and the Wacom and all the
Cintiqs and all that, yeah.
It's really tailor-made for us. It's really, so whoever invented it must have been a comic, because it's so user-friendly to us. It saves us so much. I'm just grateful for it. To be able to just flip something over or turn it around and step backwards where I've made a mistake is a revelation in speed and efficiency. It saves you so much time and effort, and so what you lose sort of in having the sheer amount of original art, you make up for in time and aggravation and just the freeing ability to be able to produce this thing.
So you can ink that eye, like, I don't like it, ink it again. I don't like it, ink it again. I don't like it. You're not like caking up whiteout on your drawing,
Yeah, honestly, I don't want to get too used to that, because then it starts to take away from your ability to do something on a piece of paper.
Right.
I've noticed that when I go back to the paper, I'm like, I start to go, I can't step backwards. I can't just
Command Z, yeah.
I can't free transform this. I have to erase it all. So I'm like, but so you don't want to get too comfortable doing this, because you don't want to take away from that. So you have to find a happy medium, like everything. You hear that, people? Find a happy medium.
So D. Brad asks, because it's BRZRKR time, Ron. Can Ron tell us how we got connected to Keanu in the series?
Sure. A weird asteroid hit in the back of my house and opened the piano. Hey, Ron, you want to work with it? It actually wasn't like that. But
that's fantastic.
It's funny because, so I was finishing up Juggernaut for Marvel, and I loved working on Juggernaut. It was a fun title to work. But I was at that stage I was telling you about where I really wanted to stop. I didn't really like where the direction a lot of things were going. Just been at Marvel for so long. It was just time. It's time to move on and do something else. I didn't want to do other people's stories really anymore. I wanted to maybe just do paintings or just commission whatever. And so I was done. And I wasn't gonna renew contract Marvel, and I don't know if they were renewing, after COVID. So I just saw it as my time to move on. And I got an email from this guy Philip Sabick, I think it was, and asking me my availability. And I'm like, well, it just so happens I'm, thinking about leaving Marvel. I'm leaving Marvel. This is gonna be my last issue, but I really don't know what I'm gonna do. He's all, well, can we talk to you about something? I'm like, well, yeah, sure. Give me a call. I'm not promising it. And I had every intention of turning whatever it was down unless I could cover it or something. So he calls me up. He's like, so look, we're doing this book with Keanu Reeves. I'm like, okay. Keanu Reeves, the movie star, and how many Keanu Reeves are there?
Right.
And he's like, yeah, and he really loves your work. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. So I'm like, not really. I'm like, okay, but I'm assuming he's branding something. He's just gonna not be involved in it. This is Keanu Reeves, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What's his name on the title? And he's like, no. And I'm like, oh, well, I didn't hear that from him, so I'm being sort of skeptical. And they're like, well, listen, can we just talk to you more about it? Can we do a Zoom meeting? And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, sure. I'm open to it. Again, thinking I'm going to turn this thing down. So that Wednesday comes, 1:00 Zoom meeting with Boom Studios. So I go, I press the studio button, and bing, there's Keanu Reeves staring at me. I'm like, hey, what's wrong? Whatever, however it went. The other guys with Boom were there, it was like this, but Keanu's staring at me.
Yeah.
Okay, what weird, strange funhouse mirror universe have I stepped into? This is just bizarre. But again, the universe lays a path in front of you. You can stand there and choose to take it or not. I'm like, okay, I'll take this path since it's laid before me. And so we talked, and joked around. I was joking around with him a lot right away, trying to get a feel of him. He was laughing, and we were having a good time, actually.
And he seems like a real nice dude. I always hear that he's a real nice guy.
He's, we talk on Skype, just him and I, just the other night we did, actually. He's a very stressed out guy, though, because of so much responsibility being a huge movie star. And and I'm like, so when I talk to him, I'm like, dude, are you okay? He's like, I'm just, you can see it's just heavy on it. It's like he's tired from the whole day of shooting. We're talking about the book and stuff, but anyway, so when that happened, like we gave each other a virtual hug, and he was like, "If you choose to do this, great, I appreciate it." Whatever. So obviously, what am I going to do? Say no? No, Keanu, I'm not going to do your work. So, and I don't know how much he really loved my work. I get the sense he might have shown him something. And he just liked it, or they didn't know my name because I didn't get, I just got that feeling, and because I did ask the guy, the editor in chief, I'm like, well, what did you show him? He couldn't really tell me.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, so they're kind of, embellishing maybe a little or saying it a certain way that made me think he's a huge comic fan. He was a Ron Garney fan. But I don't think that was it. I think they showed him stuff and he liked, I like this, because I guess there was an artist on it before me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what happened. All right, I heard rumors, but it's none of my business. So I came on it late. It was like months and months and months and months late, after they'd already been planning this thing, and then I came in and it was like, they were all, they were really nice about it, very excited, to get me on it. And, pianos, excited. And that's how it all began. And then I just, I took a month off after, or a couple weeks, because I was really burnt. I told them, I said, look, I'm really burnt out, guys. I don't know if I can jump from one frying pan into another frying pan.
Yeah.
I mean, literally just. But I did, because they gave me the scope of this thing and the Kickstarter and all that. And just this, I'm like, that's all new to me. I've never even involved myself in any of that kind of thing. I've always been a contract guy. So it was all new, but it was very exciting. It was like, wow, they were so enthusiastic and so supportive. And, and I had a lot of misgivings, and they were trying to walk me through them and, work out the contract with me. And, I just, it was very weird. And, and there were some issues I was having, and I was hesitant to sign the contract, and, and I was, but ultimately all the pieces fell into place, and I went to work, and I just, boom. And it happened because, because I came in there and I just, I'm a workhorse. I have to do it.
The work, yeah.
I don't second guess stuff. I just turn the switch on and boom, I go like an engine. So that's what I did. It was a double-sized issue, 44 pages. Man, and I did that all on paper. Every one of those things I did on paper. So, so I was, showing to you.
You got some pages to show, Ron?
I do.
You have the BRZRKR shelf?
I have them. I just gotta find them. I was going through them.
Oh, and are you fine?
Oh my God, I can't believe it.
Oh, it's got the stack. I love it.
The stack.
Respect the stack.
Let's see.
And hey, Ron, while you're looking, can I ask you another question?
Sure, go ahead.
Our buddy Eternity Forever says, how much input does Keanu actually have in regards to your art? And do you have any say in how the story's told?
Yeah, well, here's what happens. I don't know where I put the stack of originals, but I have some of the covers and stuff in here. He actually quite a bit. It's his baby.
Right.
So I am very conscious of that. And he's working with Matt Kent, who's co-writing it with him, or Matt's more of a scribe for Keanu. Keanu kind of acts it all out. And sits there and just, and can't believe Keanu Reeves is acting out and stuff. So, so that's how it basically unfolds. It's funny because when I started, I don't know if you guys saw the interview I did with him and Matt on it's on YouTube. But I was always joking about not finishing it, not making it to the 6th issue and stuff. And now I finished up issue 5, and they were scrambling to get issue 6 done because I beat them. I passed them out. So Keanu said to me the other night, he's like, "Oh man, can you slow down?" So like, I said, "I can, sure, I can slow down."
Anyway. So he sort of does like a Stan Lee thing, like he acts it out, and the guy.
Yeah. Like here's one of the covers I just did. See that?
Oh wow!
Nice. And that. So did you pencil it on there, or did you print it out in blue and ink it? How was that?
No, I didn't print it out in blue. I penciled it and then inked it. I do the other thing, and if I do it in gray. I don't do it in blue.
Okay.
I do it just like a pencil, I'll do it in pencil. I print it out, I'll do it on here in like a pencil thing, and then just print out the pencil. So it's pencil, but it's just a printed version.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one. That's fantastic. No, you're good right there.
You're good, yeah. So you say you lay out a whole book. Do you get the whole plot and then you send it to Keanu, like the layouts?
Yeah, I do. No, I do the finished pages first, and then I send them to him. Because now I'm doing it all digital.
Okay.
Just to keep up with it. The first issue I wanted to have as originals because there's something, and I wanted to do to have those. The first issue of this character that Keanu Reeves I did together is an amazing thing. Yeah. So I wanted to have that. Here's one of the pages from these.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, great.
Looks like you're not having any fun. Really, it's a shame.
Yeah, the whole thing was just so trippy anyway. So how do you not have fun? It's just a trip. Like I said, it's like an asteroid comes in here. If you were to say to me a year ago, guess what? You're going to be inextricably linked personally with Keanu Reeves. Like, oh yeah, okay, sure. But that's what happened. So life takes some weird turns, and it was the same thing with like Will Smith. I met him, hung out, with him. And, that was trippy too. And I Am Legend speaking of that. But here's some weird moments.
Oh, hold on, let me. Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Some prints, yeah. So you take those with you if you go to a show, right?
Yeah, these are just in my portfolio here.
So was that done digital?
Yeah, this was digital. Some of the pages I did traditional. Like I said, the covers I did traditional.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Ron, let me ask you a question about Yeah, Ron, let me ask you a question just about the new spotlight that's on you with being linked to this project.
Yeah.
Because I see, I get a Publisher's Weekly because I'm doing middle grade kids books now, so I'm really in that world. And they had this big full page about you guys talking.
Yeah.
And like all that kind of stuff. And you've been in the spotlight for a long time. Do you feel like this is different than your just straight up comic book work? Like, is the excitement different?
Of course, yeah, it is. I mean, it's different just in that where I was at mentally, and then how this came about. Yeah, it is. It's just different. I mean, it definitely. I will say. I don't know how to. I would say that, like you were saying, the light shining on me is much bigger.
Right.
Whoa, I'm getting like in private messages and up the wazoo from people I don't know, offers. I got an offer from this guy recently. I guess there's this DJ who's uber famous, wants to do a comment with me, and I'm like, not that I'm not honored by it, but
right.
Again, it's one of those things where it all sounds exciting to somebody on the outside, but again, I'm going to have to be sitting here, and I don't know if I want to do that.
Right.
As much as I love comics, I don't know if I want to spend the rest of my life doing that. There's a world out there that I want to be out at, partying with the DJ. I don't want to be in here drawing his comic.
Right.
But this was a special thing, and it's and it's definitely it's weird, because of how much it thrust me into this level. I don't know how to make it talk about without sounding pretentious. I'm not trying to, but kind of elevated my exposure, I guess.
Sure.
Well, you're into the world of celebrity now because our culture is very all about celebrity, right? So,
yeah, for sure. And working in comics, obviously, I'm used to it a little bit, the microcosm of it.
Right.
But this is a little bit of a different animal, And I get messages from women a lot, who want to, trying to get to Keanu through me, and it's weird, you're like,
wow,
a different thing, So
Hi, Ron. Can you put me in touch? There you go.
Yeah, like I don't know if you saw this. This is the cover of Publishers. Oh, that's you. Sorry, Ron.
no, I did not see that.
It's the cover of Publishers Weekly.
Oh, can I get a copy of that? That's pretty great.
Yeah, sure. I'll send this to you.
No, you will.
Yeah, sure. I read it, and there's Ron right there looking sexy.
That's so great.
But that's like this. I mean, this is fantastic coverage. I mean,
I just I will say there was a Washington Post article that kind of picked me. When we were talking before about how the artists get kind of, and I got a little ticked off because there was an article that came out. The guy I spent all this time being interviewed, and then they asked me for further thoughts that I spent time, and then when I got the article came out, they just referenced a line that I said about Keanu. They made it all about Keanu. That's fine. I get it's Keanu, but what are you doing that for? Don't just cut me out because you think, after I've spent all this time. That annoys me.
Yeah.
Again, I don't mean to sound petty. I'm not trying to, but
sure.
You know what. So, but yeah, it's a different animal altogether. I'm grateful. That's all I can say is I'm very grateful.
Does it make you think, like, if you say, okay, I don't want to do monthly comics, but I want to do a project like once every year or two, does it make you think, like, well, maybe that would be the way? Like, not having to grind yourself, but work on something that you...
For sure. I mean,
balance it out a little bit more.
Look at Keanu. He does a movie, takes time off. Something where there's an end game, an end to it. That I can do this and know that, and also that there's incentive at the end of it. I honestly think I want to just write and draw my own series.
Right.
Maybe an anthology. I don't know, anthology or something. I just don't know, but I don't think I want to work with someone else's ideas. And I've got, I'm not. I wrote in college. I co-wrote some comic books, came up with all kinds of ideas. That SpiderMan, when I was on SpiderMan, it was my idea that Straczynski and Marvel took. And they didn't even give me credit for it. It was my idea to have him. I sent Marvel this whole synopsis of this issue I wanted to do where Spider-Man fights the Kingpin in prison in front of the inmates. It ruins the Kingpin's reputation, because Spider-Man kicks the crap out of him. Because honestly, let's be honest, Spider-Man would kick the crap out of Kingpin.
Yeah. He can lift a bus. Kingpin can't lift a bus.
Exactly. I was always mystified by this idea that there's even a competition. And I'm like, why does not Peter just not come in and, and say, I've had enough of your shit. I'm going to smack you around in front of all, bitch slap you around in front of all these inmates. And surprise, surprise, the next script I get was that story. Right? And I'm like, oh, great, I get to draw, and then they didn't even get credit on it. They give it to Straczynski. Well, it's not his story. It was my story. But whatever, I was mad about it at first. I sound like I'm all disgruntled. I'm not. Really not. I'm just talking about.
Well, I don't think it has to. I don't think it's about being disgruntled. I mean, it's the thing that
cross like that.
Yeah, but I think it's the fact that the people don't really understand how loosey-goosey this business is in a way. Like I said, it's all like a handshake deal. Even when you're under contract, it's still, hey, you want to do this? Hey, you want to do that? I mean, I had instances at Marvel where I was given books and taken off books and taken off series and not told, and you find out because somebody else told you something. And
I've heard that. Actually, I've heard that. People when that happens.
Yeah. So, and fans have, like I said, they have no idea how sausage is made. And a lot of young artists also don't have any idea before they get into the business, right, about how the business is. And the business that you and I got into doesn't actually exist anymore. That business is gone, because now you could actually start out your business on Kickstarter. You could do something.
Well, it teaches you a lot on how to handle yourself professionally, for sure. One thing I realized is you can't get angry and go off on people, obviously, but you need to be able to assert yourself, stand your ground about what you want. and call people to task on things so you feel comfortable with yourself, so you don't feel like you're being taken advantage of. I mean, you should be able to say things and always stand up for yourself, but you also have to do it in a professional manner. So it teaches you a lot about things, about the world of professionalism, how far you can go, and because like I was just saying, you can come across as just some disgruntled artist. But no, you have to make sure you have your parameters in place about what you want and how this. I'll tell you, for me, I always make it very clear right up front how I work. I'm not going to work according to the way you want me to. This is how I do it. If you don't want me to do it, if you can't handle it the way I do it, then you get someone else to do it. This is me. This is what you get. That's it. If you don't make any, you don't step backwards on that. Stand your ground, but be professional. And then when you do the work, you make sure you are a man of your word and do the work the way you say you're going to do it. Don't, don't be inaccessible for 3 weeks. Or, the way I handle it is I'm like, look, I don't want to be bothered. Look at people looking for pages. I'll do the work. Here's how I do it. I tell them just like I told you guys, 10, lay the whole thing out. So there's going to be a period of time where you're not going to hear from me.
Right.
And I don't want to be bothered because you just stress me out, and it's going to make me not do the work the way feel comfortable and enjoy it. And it's not going to come out. So the return on that is I do that for them because they're giving me what I want. So I give them what they want, and that's professional. And that's the one thing I would say to anybody trying to get into business is you have to learn that. And be a man of what you do. Be true to your word, and give them what you say you're going to give them. And then they appreciate it. And then you're in a good shape, and you have a good relationship for the most part.
So you have one issue of BRZRKR left, is what you're saying? One more?
No, I have. It's 12 issues. I'm up to issue 5. I finished issue 5.
So you've got
another year and a half.
Another year and a half. Well, but I suppose that's also comforting because maybe working this way, you can also pace yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they're good. All the guys at Boom are good. Like Eric, the editor, he's a great guy. He's very, works with me really well about the schedules. They all do, I mean, again, I came into it late, but I was very honest with them. And I produced, like I say, I'm going to produce. And they let me work. If I tell them I need more time, they're going to adjust it for me. It's not a stressful thing. I still feel stress, because I got to get done. But, they're very good. And also because it's not, it's a Kickstarter thing, and we can adjust if we need to.
I have a really special question from our buddy Myra, who asks,
Hi, Myra.
First, hi, Ron Garney. Awesome. I can't really make that out. Awesome to see you here on Pencil to Pencil. Any advice for artists dealing with severe creative block?
Yes, for sure. You need to explore other areas of art. Don't just stick with comic books. If you're suffering a creative block, go to a bookstore, sit down, and look at art books involving art that you would never normally find yourself looking at. It could be real abstract, designs, or it doesn't matter what. But look at other things that you think you wouldn't ever look at and be inspired by. You'll be surprised at how inspired you get and how that will break you free. Because sometimes creative block is because you're stuck in one mindset. Mm-hmm. You get stuck in an area where there's no walls. It's an area of it's very black and your feet stick to the floor. But so you have to find a way out of there, and the only way out of there is to not focus on the work you're doing. And go look at other people, what other people do just for inspiration, just to have fun. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes you'll see something where you go, snap, you go, oh God, I want to try that. It's so cool. Wow, it's so inspiring. Oh, I mean, things will grow from there. It's like a seed that you plant back in your own head.
I like that.
So yeah, so that's what I would suggest you do. look at other things, and then walk away from, like I said, walk away from your own work. I walk away from my stuff all the time when I'm stuck, you know, and then when I come back to it, it reveals itself. So
Cool. Thanks,
it's
Ron.
like a wizard. Reveal yourself.
So we're gonna start wrapping up. I don't know where the time's going. Ron,
Real quick, before sorry to interrupt.
Oh yeah.
But Mike, I gotta say, before you made the comparison of not being able to get away from working in Photoshop to
Clip Studio.
Clip Studio as being like not changing your underwear. And I was gonna say, no wonder my Wacom tablet smells so bad.
Oh man.
Like underwear advertising. Oh god, I gotta change that underwear. Anyway.
Oh, so well, yeah, we're going to wrap, but I have a couple of things left. I have a question and a statement, and you've been fantastic.
Are you gonna read? You're gonna read a statement, your own personal.
Right. No, you'll enjoy it. It's not for me. But yeah, you've been great, Ron. I hope you can hang out with us while we close out the show. But I have a couple more things for you. JRD asks, Ron, are you a pen or brush inker when you're not doing digital work?
Both. I'll start with a pen, something very thin, because what's nerve-wracking is when you get into real tight spaces and trying to do an eyelid or those little areas. So I use an ultra-fine pen so I can control the line. But then when I want to get organic and start to create, because the brush to me gives it the life.
Right.
It's like, you know, you start with the technical aspect, you get that all in, and then the brush comes in and it's like, you know, it just starts to pull the forms up, like, you know, again, it's like a sorcery type thing, you know, you kind of pull the figures off the page with the brush. And, you know, there's a lushness you can, and it's amazing how much gestural stuff you can do just with the side of the brush to create patterns, you know, and things that.
And you know, that's a very classical way of working, because all the old guys, going all the way back to Foster, he would do that very thin contour line and then go in with the brush, man, and just bam.
My stuff is very kinetic. I would say if I were to make a comparison, I'm more like Klaus and Joseph, if anything.
Yeah.
If you're really looking for work, because I'm very fast with trusting my instinct. I'll lay it down quick, you know, and I just kind of let it just kind of come to life and let it, the energy try to come through, you know. I'm not, you know, that's, you can see the difference, you know, in my old stuff versus me inking my stuff. It's almost alarming how different it is, because of what my instincts are. So, yeah.
Our buddy Tim asked, like, specifically what kind of stuff you've been using lately. Are you a Hunt 102 guy?
No, I use like Winsor Newton Series 7 stuff, or, you know, anything I can find. It's hard to pinpoint.
Do you use markers at all? Like, do you use Copic?
I use fine point flares. I use Copic markers. I use stuff I find at the store. Ballpoint pens I use. I love the fit. Ballpoint pen offers you so much control. It's weird. When it goes down on the paper, it just does this. And ultimately, you have all this nice control, and you can get some nice effects with it. But then when you compare it to actual Indian ink, it's not as good. It doesn't have that same luster,
body,
body to it. But the control you have with a ballpoint pen, it's cool as hell. I don't know if you guys have seen Frank Cho's Ballpoint Beauties.
Yeah.
You know, you can see how much fun he is doing it. So, yeah,
that's fantastic. Mike, did you have any last words, last rites for Ron?
Last. No, it's great talking shop. I mean, this is what I love.
Do you want to get off now, or can I answer some more of these questions?
No, you can. Yeah,
yeah.
I don't want to leave anybody hanging.
No, I don't think we missed anything. I was going to let Dino talk to you, but I think we got everything.
Dino? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like Reeves was more dialed into the comic scene as a fan. Yeah, he was.
Oh, do you want to talk about that? JRD says, Going back to Keanu, it does sound like Reeves was more dialed into the comic scene as a fan than someone who just wanted to stick their name on a book everyone else did the work on.
Yeah, I mean, he, like, I don't, yeah, I turn the stuff in and then he'll say something to the editor. You know, we could talk, we're going to start talking more just to each other, but normally how it's structured is he sends his comments back to the editor, and they're very technical, but it's, I meant to say before, it's been good working with him because he's got a good storytelling sense from all of his experience, you know.
Well, for making the movies and probably like working with directors and stuff.
Sure, and he spots things that I've spotted, but because of the sheer amount of work I have to do, I don't go back to them and I kind of forget about them. The little things can be like recently it was the character turns to the girl in the story and asks her if she wants scotch or wine. She said scotch. Now I had drawn it with wine glasses, and I remember thinking I should probably change it to a scotch glass or whatever. But I had just done it, and sometimes when you start laying it all out, you forget to refer back to the script. And when I laid it out, I had drawn wine glasses in there and forgot I should have drawn a scotch glass. So Keanu picked up on it. He said, "Oh, can we make those scotch glasses?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's right." Or there was a chimney on one side of a house that was close to the garage, and he asked if I could put it on the other side. I thought the same thing. Yeah, the fireplace makes sense. But I just moved ahead and didn't catch it. I didn't go back to it. So he's been great like that, like no one else. Maybe it's Matt too. Matt is also contributing to that, but it's been good. So, we're spotting these little things that make it, these little pieces that, make a big difference. They're small things, but they make a big difference. Dean Haspiel. Hey.
So what Dean was going to say, this was going to be...
Thank you.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. There's another one that just jumped in, and then we'll do Dino. EJB says, earlier Ron mentioned that he was considering taking a break from comics and dedicating time to painting. What is your medium of choice?
Well, I always liked the fast drying medium, acrylics, or wash or whatever, or faster. Acrylics is pretty fast, but there's nothing like oil paints, to really get a look to it, when you put the glaze over it, and it's just really something special, and the blending you can do is, and then with the acrylics, the blending you can get so much tougher, I mean, you have to keep washing it out, laying it over, and then when it dries, it's not quite, it doesn't quite have the, the hoops that you want it to have. So I would say acrylics for sure. Okay. I gotta get back.
Okay, cool.
And Mike, I love Mike's paint.
Oh yeah, Mike's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so now I have two statements. So Matt Waringo, who you may fist fight after the show, says Ron is one of those artists who you can't wait to see their take on a character. His Silver Surfer run was stunning.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. I'm imitating Lou Ferrigno.
And then also your friend of mine, Dean Haspiel. What's up, Dino?
What's up?
Says Ron Garney is one of the best draftsmen and storytellers in modern comics, and a hell of a guy. Love his recent Thing Noir. Love to see more of that. Thanks, Dino.
Yeah, that was actually fun. Actually, speaking of writing a story, I actually sort of co-wrote that with Jerry Duggan. And so I'm getting senile, losing memory. But yeah, I kind of co-wrote that with Jerry. It was sort of my story idea a little bit, or kind of combination. I don't remember how that unfolded, but Jerry was great to work with and had great ideas. We just combined ideas and came up with that noir story. And I really had a ball doing it. I always wanted to do a story of the Thing as a private detective. I always looked at him as a gumshoe, like a Amazon office, when Amazon office, like the Black Falcon sort of stories and the Rain, and he's always, and so that's how that sort of evolves. And so he kind of goes undercover, well, not undercover, but he becomes sort of a detective to find out what's happening in
Although he's pretty heavy for a gumshoe, he must be like what, like 1,000 pounds or something, right?
My glass is this big. But yeah, that's how that kind of.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks, Marshall.
One of my favorite.
Awesome. Well, I gave a plug to your social media sites, Ron. But is there one place you'd like to plug or point people to check out more of your work?
I just use Instagram. I don't honestly. Twitter to me is. I always say it's like. There's that line in Star Wars: "You'll never find a more wretched island." And Twitter is like that. Stands the bar, the bar.
Right. And you do have a Facebook fan page too. Do you inhabit that?
I pay attention as much to that, because it's everything I post on Facebook or Instagram is on there. So it's like, it's hard to keep up with all this stuff. I wish I had somebody to do it for me. That's why a lot of these celebrities and stuff just have people doing all that for them.
William Shatner is not writing his tweets every day?
I wrote to him once, not a few years back, and I said, come on, man, do you honestly believe Captain Kirk would address an alien who's putting out the image of Abraham Lincoln? Would you really address him as Mr. President?
Did he answer?
No, he didn't answer. I just think it was the funniest thing that Captain Kirk's going, addressing this space alien as Mr. President. I'm just in a mood, so I sent that to him.
That's fantastic. I'm sure you were waiting really long for him to respond.
He said, "Good day, sir."
Yeah.
Sorry.
That was a big. Actually, my mother talked to him when I was a kid because we used to raise Dobermans, and he raised Dobermans. So my mother talked about maybe hooking up their Doberman, but he said he had to go. We had to go through a hand. She had to go through his hand levels. She talked about it. So that was pretty neat.
Maybe he'll approach you to do a comic. Tech War.
Maybe. Pretty
you know what, Ron? Before we go, I had another question about all of this BRZRKR stuff.
That would be even trippier than William Shatner. I have a phaser. I actually have a phaser. Sorry, I have a phaser back there from when they were going to remake the show.
A real prop?
Yeah.
When Ron comes back, I'll give him the whole screen. Okay. And thanks everybody for hanging out with us tonight. We had a fantastic chat with Ron.
So I was a huge Star Trek nut when I was a kid, and I went into New York City to this place called the Federation Trading Post.
Wow.
I don't know if you guys know who Doug Drexler is.
No.
He's the guy who's the prop guy for the Next Generation. Created all the props for that. But anyway, he knew of this guy, Brad Nelson, who designed this, and Gene Roddenberry was going to use these for Star Trek Phase 2 before it became the movie, the motion picture. So he remade all these phases for the next series.
Does it light up?
And I got a hold of one. Yeah, the batteries aren't in it.
That's awesome.
I have another one too that's really cool that Wand Magic Company does.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Cool, aren't they? I know all the different effects. So I love these little toys.
Do you display those, Ron, or are they just laying around your studio?
No, they're displayed. I have a display. This one's on a magnetic display.
Oh, look at that! Wow.
And it charges. The battery in here gets charged by the magnet, so it stays charged on. So
wow.
Every 6 months you have to put it into the outlet, but this will keep it charged.
I know.
Don't set it on overload. Don't set your phaser on overload.
That's right.
It has that on there. It has that.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So sorry, Jamar. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I forgot. Don't worry about it.
Do you still watch the old Trek every once in a while, the original series?
Yeah, I do. Actually, when my mother passed away, I actually watched a couple because, some of that reminds me of her.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite episode?
Yeah, probably. I have a few. Probably City on the Edge of Forever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a classic story, such a beyond, you know, great science fiction, tragic tale. Very deep and meaningful and tragic. You know, dealt with the war. You know, and the real heartbreak of that, of the ending, it was just so potent. You know? And the way it was acted, you know, and actually, my mother resembled uh, Joan Collins quite a bit. Um, so yeah, it's probably my favorite. Watched one today. That's one of my favorites actually, because I just put in a new home theater down in the basement. I got this 85-inch screen down there.
Oh,
with, you know,
geez.
and I bought these chairs, these movie theater chairs that recline, and they have LEDs in them and stuff. And my kids are like, ah! I'm just like in heaven over it. And I watched Balance of Terror episode. And I wasn't feeling well today because I ate some bad steak the night before. So I was like, oh. So I just laid down in the chair and put Balance of Terror on my starter. It's the one where he fights the Romulans for the first time. And that was
Spock's dad as the Romulan.
Yeah, it was Spock's dad. Yeah, Mark
Leonard.
Leonard.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, I know. It's funny that it's funny how accepting we are of those obvious flaws in it. But
Well, you know, it's interesting because I've been watching, because I have Amazon Prime, I can watch a lot of stuff like Hawaii Five-0. And they have Hawaii Five-0, the original series. And Mark Leonard was on there, but he was as a Japanese guy. So they gave him like the fake eyebrows, you know, and everything. And so but on those old shows, so I've seen 2 seasons now, they have the same actor will play a different role. Like in the first season, he's like a drug peddler, and then in the second season, he's like a scientist.
I know. I've seen that a lot too. I know. They did that in Mission Impossible a lot too.
Yeah.
It was the same actors, but or from different TV shows, you'd always see these actors. It was weird how all cross pollinating, but it hasn't changed much really now, because now you see the same actors. And it's funny how things get into that, the same way in comics, the same pencilers and stuff, and do the titles and everything, but the actors in Mission Impossible are the same actors in Star Trek.
Well, even like I used to watch the old first couple seasons of Gunsmoke, and he would say the one guy would play like a hermit in one episode, and then in another episode he's like a German immigrant, and then like it's the same guy who played somebody 4 times on the show over the course of like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, Star Trek has done that a couple times, not just with Mark Leonard, but a few of the actors here or there. Who else does it? That girl who played the blind woman in it, she was also in it in another episode.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Or she played a doctor in the new series.
Well, Hollywood is so big now, and I was just having this conversation about how it's flipped from where it seemed movies was kind of like the biggest ticket, and now it seems like television, because there's so much streaming that needs to be fulfilled, and every 5 minutes there's a new debut of a show on Hulu or Apple TV or Netflix, or you can't keep up.
That's what was going to happen with Men of Wrath. It was weird, it got picked up first. Had a few different things happen. First, this guy who made The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo wanted to do it, but he didn't want to give me parody with Jason. That's another one of those things that I was telling you about. It pisses you off. You're like,
yeah.
So they were all like, came to me with that and said, well, he doesn't want to give you parody with Jason. I'm like, there's just silence on the phone. I'm like, well, what do you want me to say to that?
Right.
How about that? Like, what? I mean, not to be crass, but again, just not respecting the contribution, how much time it takes. He just seemed like he didn't care. So it didn't, I wasn't going to take one for the team. I spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And yeah.
Opportunity that I wanted to take advantage of. So it was like, no, I'm not going to do it. So it was Jason. Jason was fun. But then it got picked up by USA Network, and then Harvey Weinstein thing. And I don't know if you guys recall that, but everything was anti-men. And the guy called me. He's like, Ron, he goes, just because it says men in the title, they don't want to do it anymore.
Wow.
Wow.
So it's like, I'm like, seriously? So I've spent my whole career looking for, trying to get opportunity like this. And because of something as stupid as that, we're going to, I'm like, okay, that's the way things go,
Right.
So, not that what happened was stupid, but just that the reasons were stupid. Like, these two feminist executives, I guess, were like, forget it. We're just not going to do anything men related. Then they asked us if we would rename it Women of Wrath. And it was like, no, it's Men of Wrath. That's the book, and that's it. So, so we then got picked up again by Paramount. And Paramount was interested and wanted, and they optioned it. And then for whatever reason, because of COVID, everything got changed and their schedule got changed, and then some guy came in with another property they wanted to make instead, so then that got shelved, and so that's it. So it's just I don't know if it's ever going to get made, but it came close a few times. But a lot of it was the streaming thing like you're talking.
And what about the thing with Keanu? Was that you think that'll eventually go to being a movie? Oh,
it's already been announced. It got picked up.
Oh, okay.
Netflix, and it's going to be an anime series as well. It was announced. We did the first issue came out, and then within a month, it already got picked up.
So are you working on that? Would you be involved with the art or the design?
We'll see. That's a ways down the road. I don't know. I've expressed interest in it because, again, I don't want to continue doing the comic book work, and if that path opens up for me, I'm going to take it. I did tell them, the guys from Boom Movie Studio, that I wanted, I'd like to be a part of it, and maybe even get into doing some assistant directing, with my storytelling experience. I've done it, how many decades? I think I'd be a pretty good assistant director at least. But, that's a risk they may not want to take, but who knows? We'll see. I'm going to push for whatever, I do want to be involved with it to some degree. See what happens.
Wow, that's great, man. Ron, it's been fantastic having you on the show.
It's been great.
You have delighted our chat room, all of our live watchers, and you're
delighted me.
Oh, Ron.
Oh, Ron.
Right, Mrs. Warren.
Oh, Ron.
Oh, Ron.
So,
Matt.
So yeah, man, I would love to have you back on at some point when you've
conquered Hollywood.
That's right.
I will take it by the throat.
Yeah, the next time Ron's on, it'll be his assistant sitting there,
right?
And Ron won't even be on.
Yeah, he'll just whisper to you.
I told Keanu I wanted to train with him in jiu-jitsu, but he won't do it.
Are you guys gonna spar if you meet? Like do some kung fu? Because he does kung fu and you do.
No, I did talk to him about it. I just said, hey, we should train. Because I'm a first-degree black belt. He was like,
and you just got that recently, right? Wasn't that not that long ago, or am I misremembering that?
My first degree I got about a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
I got one of those, maybe over a year ago. But my black belt I got about 5-6 years ago.
Wow.
So 2015.
Well, I remember seeing a picture of you. Yeah, I remember seeing a picture of you getting your your first degree or whatever.
2015 or 16. I got my first degree a year ago. I think it was a year ago. So anyway, So he actually said to me, "Oh, I heard you're a black belt." I'm like, "Yeah." And it's funny because we both know the guy. I competed against the guy who was an ex-special forces Army Ranger. That was
wow.
In a world international tournament in New York, and he beat me. I lasted 6 minutes with him, but that's all he does. World champion. So it was a great experience, though, and but we became friends, and it turns out, just by dumb happenstance, that he owns a security guard agency, and he knows Keanu because he hires out his security guards for Keanu. So he texts me. He's like, "Hey man, tell Kiki I said hi," meaning Keanu. And then Keanu was like, he texted Keanu and said the same thing back to me. So it was really interesting, you know. So we happen to know this guy. So we talked about it because of that. And then his stuntmen learned judo from a guy I started running out in California. So we know all these people, you know, so it's interesting. But, you know, look, it's not like I'm best friends with the guy. He's a big movie star, and, you know, it's been great. You know, having a blast doing it. You know, he's like I said, he's a bit stressed out. So, you know, I'm having a good time either way. I trying to soak it in. You know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, man. Just, you know, I don't need to tell you to enjoy it, but I love the optics of it, and I love being able to pick up my issue of PW and see you on the cover of it. Everybody,
that's pretty cool. I please do send me that if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, no problem, brother.
I'll go online and.
No, that's so hard to find, but yeah, I'll
well, I don't want to take it from you if that's the only copy.
No, it's yours. Don't worry about it. All right, let's get out of here. So, thank you so much, Ron, for your time.
Yeah, man, it's been great.
Great seeing you guys. I haven't seen you in a long time. So.
I know you look fantastic, brother. Hopefully, we'll get to see you again in person. So, Ron, hang out with us when we do our exit. We do a little thing. So, thank you guys for watching Pencil to Pencil. This does not melt. After this, you want to go back and watch it again, just go to the replay. We have a Facebook page, and we also are on YouTube. And you can always go back and see some of our earlier episodes. And they're all great. That's my take. So I'm Jamar Nicholas for my man, Mike Manley. And for Ron down there, let's say goodnight. And Ron, you're going to do this with us. And our official outro, don't forget to wash those Kirby hands. Oh, that's a good one. There you go.
What am I doing here?
Oh, that's a...
grabbing Mike Manley's boob.
Have a good night, everybody. Good night.